On today's show, despite 27 turnovers, the Rockets still managed to blow out the Jazz behind 31 points from Jabari Smith Jr. playing some of the best basketball of his entire season, and Kevin Durant with his best passing game of the season. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the #1 sports podcast network. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. On today's show, we're talking about the Rockets' 125-105 blowout win against the Utah Jazz behind 31 points from Jabari Smith Jr., who is on fire. Great two-way impact in this game. We'll talk about his impressive performance and how he's stringing together a series of really impressive games post All-Star break. We'll also talk about Kevin Durant with his best passing game as a member of the Rockets. A really well-balanced kind of game from everybody, realistically. Kind of one of those nice get-right games for this Rockets squad. We also saw some new wrinkles offensively, some off-ball movement, some cutting. It was unbelievable. We also saw 27 turnovers, which against any good team worth their salt in the NBA would have likely been a death sentence. We're going to break it all down for you on today's show. And of course, I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being one of our amazing everydayers. 125-105 final score. And outside of the first few minutes of this game, where the Rockets had 5 of their ridiculous 27 turnovers in the first 3 minutes, and they were kind of, it looked like they were going to be in a dogfight with the Jazz all night. Ime Udoka calls a timeout. He's pissed. It happened. I think he called the timeout right after one of Tari's early turnovers, and Rockets come back out of that timeout, and they just came out swinging. I mean, they were on fire from after that timeout. Shots started falling. They were executing, and they ripped off 38 points in that first quarter, went up 16 by the end of one, and just never really looked back after that. Like, at that point, it was just all Rockets the rest of the way. They led by as many as 33 at one point in this game. It was a total blowout in every sense of the word. Utah legitimately had zero chance at any point in this game, although there was a brief moment in the fourth quarter where I think they cut into the lead a little bit. Like, it got it into like the high teens, like, I don't know, like 18, 19, 20, something in that range. And I had a small moment where I was like, oh no, here it comes again. Thankfully, no fourth quarter collapse. We will talk about the turnovers, though, and how concerning some of those are, but we'll also get into the positives and stuff from this game. And there is no bigger positive, though. It's kind of, I was bummed that the Rockets collapsed the way they did against the Knicks, because Jabari Smith Jr., I should have been able to give him his flowers for that game against New York, because he played a fantastic game against the Knicks as well. But he has been stringing together, even pre-All-Star break, a really fantastic stretch of basketball. He went through a really, really awful 8-game stretch, right, where he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. It was awful. But his body of work outside of that 8-game stretch has been rather impressive. Now, hopefully he doesn't hit another pocket like that. Hopefully he finishes off the year strong. And if he finishes off the rest of the season strong, and you look at his entire body of work across an entire 82-game season, and it's just that one little 8-game blip where he was in a shooting rut, and then the rest of the season he's balling out the way his numbers have reflected, that's a really encouraging sign for Jabari Smith Jr. But in this one in particular, 31 points, 12 of 17 shooting, 6 of 11 from downtown, 1 of 2 at the charity stripe, 9 rebounds, 3 steals, 3 blocks. 4 turnovers, but everybody was turning the ball over. So I'm not going to harp on that for Jabari. I'll harp on it from a team context later. But Jabari is doing exactly the stuff you want him to do in his role. In fact, kind of exceeding what you want out of him in his role. At one point in this game, he hit a left to right, right to left, like crossover in transition, and then finished at the hoop. Like, his activity level, his energy, his, off ball movement at times, his ability to find those open shooting pockets out on the perimeter and kind of being in the right spots, filling the right spots on the perimeter to be the recipient of many kick out passes in this game. This is the exact version of Jabari Smith Jr. that the Rockets need on a night to night basis. This is the version of Jabari that is going to win the Rockets a lot of games. And for Jabari to have this kind of response after the burner allegation scandal and being far and away the guy who kind of received the worst of all that kind of like, internal drama for the Rockets, this speaks volumes about Jabari's mental fortitude and his ability to just lock in and persevere. And I mean, if this is one of those key, we talked about it when it happened, right? That the burner thing could be kind of one of those key inflection points of the season where either the team is going to galvanize and come together, or the locker room is just going to completely fall apart and everybody's going to hate each other, right? And at least as far as Jabari is concerned, the guy who got the worst of it, in my opinion, he has been nothing but an absolute professional, and he has been balling out since it happened. So really impressed with Jabari, really loving what we're seeing out of him. And as long as he stays kind of within his lane, the problem with Jabari is occasionally when he starts to get rolling, he starts doing a little bit too much, starts putting the ball on the floor too much, tries to get to his KD light ISO bag, whatever, all that kind of stuff. He doesn't need to do all that. He can, and there are times when it's beneficial. But in this game in particular, he just filled his role, man. He was the recipient of a lot of really great passes from guys like KD, Sengun, Amen, Reed, and he just was the perfect release valve. And that's exactly what the Rockets need him to be. They don't need him to be anything more than that. And if he can just fulfill that role, it is going to lead to a lot of successful basketball for this Rockets team. So loved what we saw to Jabari. Hopefully he continues this trend. And if he's able to close out this season strong and we're able to reflect back on his 82-game campaign and just point out, okay, he had one little 8-game stretch where he was bad, but outside of that stretch, he was incredible. That is going to be, like, again, because sometimes you small sample size theater, or you pick and choose certain parts of the season. Once we finish the year and we're able to really reflect on how Jabari did this season, I think that ultimately we're going to come away happier or more impressed than we will be frustrated or disappointed in his production, his role, his efficiency, all that good stuff. So fantastic stuff from Jabari Smith Jr. Hopefully he keeps it moving along. Coming up, we will talk about Kevin Durant's season high 12 dimes, his best passing game of his Rockets career, as well as the new offensive wrinkles, some of the off-ball motion and cutting and things that we witnessed in this game. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Let's talk a little bit about the passing from this Rockets team, and in particular, Kevin Durant. And that means we're going to talk about the good and we're going to talk about the bad. Let's start with the good. 34 assists as a team for the Rockets. 34 assists on 49 made shots. At the end of the day, this was a game where, thank goodness, the Jazz just could not shoot the basketball. Only 37% from the floor, 18% from three for Utah, 83% at the line, and they did get 25 free throws. But the Rockets just shot the lights out of the ball. They hit 13 more shots than Utah. They hit 10 more threes than Utah. They got up 43 pointers, which was a great sight to see for a Houston Rockets team that really doesn't shoot a ton of threes. They generated a lot of great looks from three in this game. And, hat tip, because that's what won them the game. And again, we'll get into the turnovers and we'll talk about that mess and all that stuff. But I do think that some of what we saw, and I'm curious, where this suddenly came from, because we're in game, this was game 54, 55 of this NBA season. And it's like suddenly Ime just dusted off a huge chunk of his playbook that he refused to ever touch earlier in the season. We saw off-ball motion, we saw cutting, we saw movement, and I don't know how much of that is just, the Jazz are just bad, and that's why the Rockets offense was able to suddenly start doing things that they hadn't been able to do previously, right? Or how much of it was just the Rockets being very intentional about their passing, about their movement, about looking to involve their teammates. Because across the board, it wasn't, KD's passing was off the charts, 12 dimes, career high passing as a member of the Rockets, season high in total assists. And he was fantastic in this game. But you also had 4 dimes for Tari, 9 dimes for LP, 3 for Amen. Off the bench, Reed Sheppard had 4 dimes. Like, everybody was playmaking at a very high level. This was one of the best, or arguably maybe the best passing game of the season for the Rockets. Starting with KD, it was great seeing him really put, I guess, really being intentional about making sure to get teammates involved and being kind of surgical at times with his passing. He had 9 assists in the first half without a single turnover. He almost made it to 10, and then he finally turned the ball over a couple times just before halftime, I think, or at least one turnover just before halftime. But Kevin Durant is capable of doing everything on a basketball floor, right? He can facilitate, he can score, he can defend, he can do whatever you need him to do. And I don't know if this was, Kevin just trying to inspire some confidence in his teammates, if he was trying to do the old James Harden thing of like, okay, I'm going to facilitate and get everybody involved and get everybody going first, and then I'm going to get mine and try and score the ball. Because maybe I think sometimes it feels like if the Rockets prioritize getting Kevin going early, Kevin can get going whenever he wants because it's Kevin freaking Durant. But if other guys don't get going early, then late in the game, when you need other guys to be able to step up and start knocking down shots, you can't rely on it because they're out of rhythm. The whole game's gone by. You're 20, 24, 36 minutes into a game, deep in the fourth quarter, whatever. And it's harder for guys like Jabari or Tari or Amen or any of the guys coming off the bench, whatever, to catch their rhythm late in the game, as opposed to Kevin Durant just deciding to wake up and, drop 10 plus in a quarter if he wants to. So maybe that was the mentality shift from KD, where he was like, I'm going to get my teammates involved first, and then I'll step up as a scorer if I need to. Whatever the approach was from Kevin, from the coaching staff, whatever, they need to do more of it, because this was some of the most encouraging offense, minus the 27 turnovers. This was some of the most encouraging offense that we've seen this Rockets team play in a minute, both from a shot-making perspective and also just from a creativity perspective. There was a stretch where Ime subbed in. It was late first quarter during the first the second batch of kind of substitutions, where Ime ran the double big lineup for a little bit. So he had Capela and Sengun out there. He also had Amen Thompson out there. He also had Dorian Finney-Smith out there, who is still shooting 25% from 3 on the season. And he's exactly at his average for this game, 1 of 4 from downtown. So effectively, that lineup was 4 non-shooters. And I looked at that lineup as soon as it checked into the game, and I thought to myself, well, here we go again. The fun offense was nice while it lasted, but it's about to the bottom's about to fall out on this Rockets team offensively, because this is a terrible lineup for spacing purposes. And then that lineup went out there and actually kept carving up the Jazz. And again, how much of that is just, the Jazz are a bad defense, they're egregiously tanking, they're trying to be bad, all that stuff, versus oh, these guys are actually cutting and moving off ball and doing some cool stuff. Like seeing the way that Amen Thompson was moving and playing without the basketball in this game, the cutting that he was doing. He had that one dime in midair, which was ridiculous. The catch and bounce pass midair, just some ridiculous plays from him. Ultimately, these are the types of offensive performances that I wish the Rockets had tried to kind of work with and experiment with earlier in the season, because if they could play like this every game, right? And obviously the 27 turnovers notwithstanding, like this would be incredibly encouraging, right? Because this is the way that you can win some games with your offense, right? While still being a competitive high-level defense. This is reminiscent of the Rockets that were the way the Rockets were playing those first 20 or 25 games of the year before things started getting really rough around the edges. And I think that the turnovers were potentially a side effect of some of the added movement and speed and pace of play, because they were also, they were playing so fast in this game. And this is something that this team has not done. This team has played at one of the slowest paces in the NBA for much of this season. They put up 29 fast break points in this game. They were getting out and running like crazy. And it wasn't really until later in the game that the Jazz started also kind of matching the Rockets' fast break scoring output, because at one point the Rockets were dwarfing the Jazz in their fast break output. They were getting out and scoring everything in transition. They were turning defense into offense, and it felt much more like last year's Rockets team. The turnovers are still problematic. 27 turnovers is flat out unacceptable. That is a largely untenable situation. You commit 27 turnovers against almost any other team in the NBA, you're probably losing that game. Thankfully, they committed 27 turnovers, and the Jazz still managed to score 34 points off those 27 turnovers, mind you. However, because the Rockets just shot the lights out of the ball in this game and the Jazz just could not hit anything, couldn't even hit water if they fell out of a boat, thankfully it didn't matter. But it could have very easily mattered. And this Utah Jazz team, who the Rockets have lost to once already this season on the second night of back-to-back, they could have very easily spoiled the Rockets by taking advantage of the countless opportunities, which they did do a good job taking advantage of. It's just their offense and their approach to the game outside of capitalizing on those turnovers was just basically non-existent. I mean, the Jazz offense was abysmal. They couldn't get stops. Like it was a mess for the Jazz. But those 27 turnovers, right? Some of them are self-inflicted. A lot of them were actually self-inflicted, just careless turnovers, sloppy passes, not being fully locked in. And some of that is probably because you're playing against a lower quality opponent, sure. But we've also seen the Rockets make those ridiculous mistakes against good teams. And so those turnovers still need to be cleaned up. It is a monumental problem. And at the end of the day, yes, it's the players on the court, the guys actually executing, but I look at and point to coaching for those turnovers, because that is attention to detail. That is lack of focus. That is lack of game plan execution. And all of that boils down to coaching. All of that is Ime Udoka and the coaching staff not having this Rockets team locked in and mentally prepared to play a sound, high-quality basketball game. And that is majorly concerning, because against almost any other team in the NBA, 27 turnovers would have been a death sentence. And so while it was encouraging seeing the Rockets playmaking and passing and moving the basketball, and I hope that trend does continue, they need to continue that trend and continue to minimize and reduce those turnovers. Because if they can hit a point where they find a happy medium between the additional ball movement, swinging the basketball around the perimeter, making those extra passes, because again, the ball movement was incredible in this game. One of the best passing games of the entire season for the Rockets, not just individually for guys like KD and LP, whatever, but as a team, right? The passing was great, but they need to clean up those turnovers. And I wish that Ime had started this little offensive revolution earlier in the season so they'd have more time to iron out the kinks as the season wore on. But better late than never. And the Rockets still have 20 plus some odd games before the playoffs get here to continue to work on and refine this new kind of offensive approach. If it is a new offensive approach, hopefully it is. Hopefully this is something that is here to stay and we'll continue seeing motion and movement and cutting and backdoor actions and things to actually generate some good, high quality offense while also working on reducing those turnovers. Because Rockets need point guard by committee with this squad. They do. That's just a fact of the matter. And what we saw, even including the 27 turnovers, which at times was still making me want to pull my hair out of my skull, even including all that, this offense was still much more enjoyable to witness this game, and it was a lot more fun, and it was a lot more exciting. Things were crisp. They were generating good looks, significantly better than most other games throughout this season. So you take the bad with the good, and you continue to work on it and refine it, and hopefully start to reduce those turnovers moving forward. Because it's hard to go from, hey, we're just standing around stagnant doing nothing, to, hey, suddenly we're moving and we're swinging the ball and we're passing, making extra passes and all this stuff. Hopefully it's a trend that continues, minus the turnovers. Coming up, want to share final thoughts from this game. We'll talk about the performances of Alperen Sengun and Amen Thompson and Reed Sheppard off the bench and more. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience, totally paid for. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Futures this time of year is great, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Okay. Final thoughts from this Rockets win against the Jazz. Let's start with Amen Thompson, who, I'll be completely honest, guys, I have never been a fan of when Amen Thompson wears the little like sleeved undershirt on his jersey. I hate sleeves under any shirt. Like, I hate it when college players do it. I hate it when NBA players do it. I've never been a fan of like that look. I just think it ruins the look of like a jersey and like the aura, whatever. And so I even joked early in the game, I was like, Amen is not aura maxing when he wears his sleeved undershirt. And then he went and had a phenomenal game. He broke his streak of not scoring 20 plus. He had 20 on a perfect 8 of 8 from the floor, went 4 or 5 at the free throw line, added 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, had a block in there, did have 6 turnovers. And there were a number of, kind of sloppy passes from Amen Thompson. Kind of addressed some of that in the previous segment, but overall a really encouraging game from Amen, where he got downhill and he was slicing and dicing through the Jazz defense. And this is the Amen Thompson that I spoke about previously, where he can't play afraid, right? Amen needs to be that downhill threat for this Rockets team on a nightly basis and a consistent basis. He can get you 20 points in his, I don't want to say in his sleep, but he can get to 20 on a nightly basis pretty consistently because he's got the weapons and the skills to do it. And he needs to do that, right? He cannot just settle for being an afterthought on offense. And it's difficult. It's a very tough balancing act for Amen, trying to figure out how, when and where to get his teammates involved, when and where to pick and choose his own spots on the floor, all that kind of stuff. But overall, nice game from Amen Thompson, minus the turnovers, but you can basically say that about everybody in this game. And he needs to continue that ability to get downhill and score at the rim, because when he's doing that, it unlocks another dimension for this Rockets team. And it also opens up his playmaking bag. There was one play where he drove, collapsed the Jazz defense. I don't even know how he managed to hang in the air and get the kick out pass the way that he did, but he kicked it out to Jabari Smith Jr. in the corner, the left corner, and then Jabari swung it to the top of the key where Kevin Durant got a wide open shot. And I'm talking, KD got a lot of wide open looks in this game, some of the easiest shots he's taken as a member of the Rockets. And again, some of that is just the Jazz being a bad team. Some of that, though, is the Rockets actually putting their best foot forward, trying to initiate some high-level offense, really sharing the basketball, really working it, attacking the Jazz defense, collapsing the defense, and then making the next, 2, 3, 4 passes to find open shooters. So loved what we saw out of Amen Thompson this game. He needs to keep it up for sure. Alperen Sengun flirting with a triple-double himself, 16, 9, and 9, had a steal, had a couple blocks, a few turnovers, 7 of 12 shooting. I have been banging this drum for as long as I can remember, and I will continue to do so. The Rockets are at their best when Sengun is facilitating as the playmaking hub. And this game felt like that, right? And the passing becomes infectious. When everybody is passing the way that they were in this game, everybody becomes a better passer. Everybody's looking to make that extra pass. They're looking to turn good shots into great shots. And for Alperen Sengun, there's when he is looking to bend the defense with his passing, when he's looking at getting teammates involved, when he's actively searching for those cutters, and when there are cutters to be found, right? When the Rockets aren't just stagnant with no off-ball movement, then he gets to utilize what is arguably the best skill set in his game, which is his passing. Alperen Sengun's passing is next level. That is his most elite skill, bar none. And it's far too often that the Rockets don't actually get to use the best skill of one of their 2-star players because they don't actually have the other 4 guys on the floor moving and doing things to create opportunities to utilize said passing. So this was a really nice performance from that, to see other guys playing off of Alperen Sengun the way that they were. And it's great for Sengun to not have to be just, I'm just going to, ISO and post up and face up and try and dribble drive and, do all the heavy lifting myself, right? No, that's not him at his best. It's just not. And so I liked that. I liked that approach to the game. And I really felt like at no point did we see one of those kind of, rough Sengun possessions where he holds the ball for, 10, 12, 15 seconds and then, shoots a fadeaway. Like those are bad. Those feel like bad offensive possessions, right? I talked about it last show, in fact, where like he hits them sometimes. He hits those fadeaways occasionally, and it's nice that he's got it in his bag as like a, oh crap, like this is all I've got left. I tried to go to my other moves. I tried to hit my spin, pivot, turn, fade, whatever. Like couldn't get to my usual closer shots around the rim, so I'll settle for a fadeaway. Like everybody needs counters in their bag, and so it's good that he has it. But I don't really like it when that becomes his like go-to move, I guess. Sengun is much better off trying to score at the rim, or actually take that back. Sengun is much better off trying to facilitate for his teammates and really using his playmaking to ignite offensive opportunities for this team. And then he's better off after that, right? Finishing in and around the rim. And then worst case scenario, you start taking those outside shots. But overall, him. And there was, I had this in my notes. He set an absolute brick wall screen on Harkless near half court at one point in this game. Just completely like a bone crushing screen. And I know Steven Adams is out there smiling somewhere watching that go down, because that felt like a Steven Adams play through and through, where Sengun comes up and sets that screen way out by half court. And oh man, dude, I'm talking like Harkless was basically on his ass. Like that was a hell of a screen from Alperen Sengun. Reed Sheppard in this one, 15 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 3 turnovers, 5 of 9 shooting, all 9 shots from 3-point land. Arguably could have continued shooting them. Like, Reed probably should have gotten even more time than he actually did, because he was legitimately knocking down threes at an elite clip in this game. 5 of 9 is ridiculous. But a strong game from Reed Sheppard, right? The fact that he is becoming what feels like more consistent in his production and his role off the bench is great. They need his production every single night. They need that little scoring pop off the bench. And they need him and Sengun to continue developing their chemistry together. And that's been kind of an underrated little storyline, something that we need to continue to monitor this season, is how those two guys exist with each other on the basketball floor. And we're continuing to see some growth and some development in their 2-man game. Reed's ability to hit that pocket pass for Alperen Sengun as he's rolling to the rim. That's going to unlock another dimension for this Rockets team offensively. Their ability to rely on Reed Sheppard to actually get Sengun rolling downhill and rolling hard to the rim and getting some easier opportunities around the basket as a result of that. So, Reed just continuing to do what he's been doing. Obviously, it's nice when he's knocking down the shots, but the playmaking is what this team desperately needs. And when Reed is out there, he's constantly trying to look to make the right play. And there are still moments where he's young. He'll make a mistake or two here or there. He'll have the right idea for a pass, but the execution's a little shoddy, that kind of thing. But you live with it. You need to, right? He needs these reps to be able to learn and go back and look at film and figure out how he can overall improve. Dorian Finney-Smith continues to be fairly disappointing. Like at this point, I mean, he's not quite unplayable, but even more so now with the loss of Jae'Sean Tate, whose energy has helped the Rockets win a handful of games here and there this season. Jae'Sean Tate, who hurt himself against the Knicks, right? That with Karl-Anthony Towns falling on top of him, he'll be reevaluated in a couple weeks. But the general timetable, he had I think it was an MCL sprain. He could be out for up to 4 to 6 weeks with that kind of an injury. So no Jae'Sean Tate, you lose your insurance wing piece, your stay ready crew wing, deep in the rotation. So DFS is going to have to continue to be a part of this Rockets rotation. And I know that internally they're just hoping that he can knock off whatever this rust is and get back to the version of DFS that they thought they had signed in the offseason. But it has been such a far cry from anything that we were expecting to get out of DFS at this point. I just that has been one of the most disappointing elements of this entire Rockets season, was the expectation that DFS would step into and fill that void left by Dylan Brooks as your kind of like 3-and-D vocal defensive anchor, ball stopper, communicator, defensive quarterback, whatever you want to call it, whatever terms you want to throw on it. And he has been anything but that this season. He's had a couple good games here and there, but his consistency is all over the place. He's not a reliable shooter yet, if at all, if he gets there. And at the end of it, he was a -5 in a game that the Rockets won by 20. That should tell you all you need to know about DFS's impact in this game and his less than stellar impact in many of the games that he's been playing so far. But Ime is going to keep playing him. And the only hope at this point is that he finally turns the corner and gets back to a place where he's playing at least like 70 to 80% of what the Rockets expected to get out of him. Because at this point in the season, I don't think they're getting the version of DFS that they thought they were signing in the offseason. But hopefully they get at least a version of DFS. It doesn't need to be the best version of him, but it needs to be better than whatever the hell this is. Because, honestly, there are many games where DFS is playing, and I'm like, I'd rather see Isaiah Crawford out there. Because at least Isaiah Crawford brings some more size, some energy. He's got a nice 3-ball. Give Isaiah Crawford a chance, man. Give him some run. Inject some youth, some more energy into the lineup, that kind of thing. Maybe I'm being too harsh on DFS. I don't know. It's just, it's been utterly disappointing. The lack of production, the lack of execution that we've seen out of him. And I think I kind of hit my wit's end when he smoked that layup last game against the Knicks. So it's going to take me a minute to get over that. But outside of DFS really struggling or continuing to struggle, great all around game for everybody else that played big minutes for this Rockets team. Hopefully a win that they're able to build on. Got to clean up the turnovers, but the passing was an encouraging sign. The new offensive wrinkles was encouraging, and it was great to see just solid games across the board for everybody. In particular, again, Jabari Smith Jr. dropping the 31. But I'm curious your thoughts. Let me know your feelings about this Rockets win against the Jazz. Are you encouraged by what we saw in this game, especially some of the stuff on the offensive end? How concerned are you about the turnovers still moving forward? All that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. We look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.